It looks like we're at 4 past the hour. And so just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us this Thursday evening. Appreciate your time coming out to learn more about the US 550 Rio Puerco Bridge Replacement Project, Village of Cuba public meeting. We're on a Zoom webinar tonight. We are recording the webinar. And so if you have friends or family or neighbors who would like to see this later on, we can also help give you the information for that as well. It'll be on the project site. And so I just want to say thank you for joining us. Tonight, we have a handful of presenters. And I want to introduce Philip Steinbeck from District 6 Project Development Engineer. And Philip.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Philip Steinbeck. I'm with the New Mexico Department of Transportation, District 6. As Brett said, I am the project development engineer for this project. And the purpose of this project here today is the replacement of the Rio Puerco Bridge on the north end of Cuba. And we'll start with introductions. And so introduce yourselves and we'll get this meeting started.
And Freddie, would you like to introduce yourself? You should be getting a prompt, Freddie, to unmute.
Got it. Hello, everybody. My name is Freddie Chavez. I'm the taking in charge of the utilities project. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah. For the project, and I'm in charge of District 6 and District 1 as well. So, you know, I guess next.
Stephen.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Giesler. I'm with the NMDOT Environmental Bureau. Thanks for being here tonight.
And Vince, even though you're not on the screen, we'd like to do an introduction as well.
No worries. Hi, everybody. My name is Vince Dortzweiler. I'm with the NMDOT Bridge Bureau. I'm the bridge designer for the project.
And Casey.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Casey Gooden. I worked on the roadway design portion of this project, and I will be doing a presentation on this project here in just a moment.
And Chris.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Baca. I'm also with Parametrix, and I'm a project support on this project.
And I'm Brent Hamlin. I'm helping moderate tonight and will help with any technical issues as well as driving the presentation. For today's meeting, we're going to have a brief presentation and we're going to summarize the need and scope of the project. We'll have Q&A session after the presentation. During the presentation, if you do have any questions, you can chat them and type them into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. If you lose that, just wiggle your mouse a little bit or touch the screen and you'll be able to get those back. Alternatively, at the end, we can do a raise hand function and I can allow you to stop to talk. And so we can actually have a conversation based on it all. So any questions you have or specific anything you'd like to ask verbally. We'll be muted until the end of the presentation. You'll be allowed to talk then. There'll be a time for questions and comments, and I've already given the explanation on how to call in. We don't have any call-in participants today. We just have Zoom webinar participants, but if we do get any call-in, I'll give some further instructions for them. And now I'll pass it over to Casey.
Thank you, Brent. This project is located on US 550 in Cuba at the Rio Puerco crossing. The project begins just north of the channel and ends just south of it. It's really short project length, only about 1/6 of a mile. It ends here at Reed Road, just north of El Brunos. The purpose of the project is to replace the existing bridge structure, but along with the bridge improvements, we'll also be doing improvements to the roadway and sidewalk within the project limits. Next slide. So the existing bridge is in pretty poor condition. It's an older bridge. It's reaching the end of its structural lifespan. So we were replacing this 3-span bridge with a single span bridge. What that means is that the structure will not need the piers that you see in the photo here at the top. So those will be removed from the channel. We'll also be replacing the existing curb and gutter, sidewalk, and drainage structures in the area. Those are in need of some updates. We'll also be updating the driveways adjacent to the project, and the roadway pavement will be rehabbed and restriped as well. Next slide. Here we have just a profile kind of the bridge. In a darker gray is the new bridge, and then overlaid on top of that is in red dotted line is the existing bridge. The roadway profile is really not going to change. The only visible difference really will be those piers being removed from the channel. Next slide. The cross-section of the roadway will remain the same as well. The lane configuration will stay the same. The only difference in the cross-section will be wider sidewalks. The sidewalks out there right now are about 3 or 4 feet. They're pretty narrow, and we'd like to get those up to ADA compliance. So new sidewalk will be put in place about 5.5 feet wide. That will be more accessible to pedestrians and achieve ADA compliance. Next slide. So we're estimating approximately 120 to 180 days for construction. This range is really just an estimate, and we'll have something more precise in place once a contractor is selected on the project and they provide their own schedule. There may be an update to this based on material availability and delivery times. But we will get out, if we do have a revised schedule, we will get that out to the public prior to construction. The bridge will be replaced in halves, so we'll maintain 2-way traffic at all times during construction. The exception of this is going to be during the girder placement. Those will require night closures, but we anticipate only about 4 nights for each half of the bridge. And those closures will only be about 30 or 45 minutes at a time. During those closures, we are going to be coordinating emergency services on either side of the bridge, so services won't be interrupted during those closures. Also, just during the construction, during the entire construction duration, we will be maintaining business access at all times. Next slide. So as far as schedule, we completed our preliminary plans last May. We're in the process of coordinating with utility owners and finalizing environmental documentation. We've conducted property owner meetings, are in the process of receiving public comment, including this public information meeting this evening. We expect to complete a final design by summer of next year, with construction beginning as soon as next fall. Next slide. Here we've included some additional project photos. These ones show some of the damage we're seeing on the sidewalk and the curb and gutter and some of the drainage issues. So this kind of damage is in large part due to the drainage issues. So we see this ponding on the right-hand side of the screen in that photo. That's some pretty severe ponding, and as that combined with the freeze-thaw cycle in Cuba, that can cause a lot of damage to the pavement. So we're hoping that by addressing those drainage issues, we can avoid this kind of damage that we're seeing on the left-hand side of the slide in the future. Next slide. Here's just some photos of the existing bridge. So you can get a better view of the underside of the structure. It is, it's an older bridge. It is in need of replacement. So we're really looking forward to getting this project going. I think it will be a huge benefit to the area and to the 550 corridor. Next slide. Okay, with that, we'll start the Q&A period. As Brent said, you can use the Q&A function if you want to type out a question, the raise hand function if you want to speak. I don't think we have any phone participants at this time, so we won't worry about that, how they can get questions in. If we do have phone attendants joining, then we'll show them how to get a question in. But if anyone has any questions or comments after the meeting, you can contact us at cubabridge@parametrix.com. Or you can also use the online form at the DOT website at the address on the screen. We also are accepting, regular postal mail. We have an address that you can mail questions or comments to. We will be accepting comments through Friday, August 19th. And if you send something in, we'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. We will be responding to any input that we get, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Also, if you don't have a question or comment at this time and you'd like to be on the mailing list for future project updates, you can feel free to email us at cubabridge@parametrix.com and we'll get you on that list. I'm going to start off the Q&A period. We've received a comment via email a couple weeks ago, so I want to get that addressed first. I don't know if that person is in attendance, but I'll go ahead and read their question. They asked, "There's no good alternative route over the Rio Puerco near Cuba, except a dirt road west of Cuba. Emergency transport and personal emergency travel will be impaired during 4 or more nights of bridge closure for placement of girders. Will the dirt road be sufficiently improved to allow emergency vehicle traffic during nights of closure?" That's a really great question. I addressed it a little bit in our construction slide, but I'll go into more detail. This person is talking about the full closures that will be required during the girder placement. Actually, we won't need a detour at all. The contractor will be required to either pause work during the girder placement in the event that an emergency vehicle needs to cross the bridge during a closure, or they will need to coordinate with emergency services beforehand so that they can post emergency responders on either side of the bridge, so there won't be any interruption in response time. This is a really good question. Thank you for asking that if you are in attendance right now. But it does look like we have a question in the queue. Brent, is someone raising their hand?
We do have a question, and Jenna, you're going to see a prompt to unmute. So there you go, Jana. We can.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Jana. Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. So this is a very good presentation. But I have a question from a pedestrian perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I belong to a group of citizens, and we're trying to make Cuba a little more accessible to pedestrians or bicyclists, or basically to improve the quality of the hometown kind of feel of Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question is about the width of the bridge. You had a slide earlier, and it shows that I think the pedestrian part is going to be a couple of feet wider than it is now.
That's correct.
My question is about, I don't know if you've ever walked across this bridge, but right now when you walk across the bridge as a pedestrian and an 18-wheeler passes you, it's a little scary. And so my question is, the extra 2 feet on either side, that doesn't sound like too much for me to protect me from 18-wheelers passing by at 35 miles an hour or more, because a lot of them, of course, don't go the speed limit. Is there any room for some kind of barrier between the pedestrian walkway and the driving space?
Casey, I can take that one if you'd like.
Thank you, Vince.
Yeah, that's a good question, and something that we actually are still analyzing from a structural perspective, looking at placing roadway barrier on the inside face and pedestrian barrier on the outside. Right now, our design currently shows it as Casey described, and that was the thought when that was due to generally lower speeds through there relative to the rest of the highway, but we certainly will take that comment into account and look at barriers on the inside face of the sidewalk.
And again, it might be adequate for cars, but when an 18-wheeler comes past you, you know, that's a different thing.
Yeah, certainly, and I imagine the narrowness of that adds to that. So one thing we are bringing up is that it's make it a little wider with a wider shoulder too.
Thank you, Jana. I totally understand it. It can be quite scary to have those trucks drive by you. I appreciate your question.
I add to that response real quick. One thing to note is that all of the sidewalk within the project limits here, so north of the bridge all the way down south to Reed Road, will be in ADA compliance. So for normal pedestrians, it will be ample sidewalk. And for anyone that happens to be taking the sidewalk from other means, say wheelchair, something like that, they will have the room and as well as the I guess the agreeability of the sidewalk itself. So it will be traversable, not just by foot, but by other means as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jana.
And if anyone else would like to ask a question, you can either raise your hand or type it in the Q&A. We don't have anything in the Q&A and no one has their hand up either. And again, if you've lost your view to raise your hand, you can just hover over your screen again or tap it and you should get the raise hand function to come back.
This is Stephen Giesler. While we're on the topic of the sidewalks and the ADA ramps, could you maybe comment on the existing light poles? Some of those seem to be in the middle of the sidewalk, and will we be moving those out of the way?
Yes, we will be moving those out of the way. That is a big concern for the sidewalk clearance is a light pole in the way. So that is something we've been designing is moving those light poles out of the way, or having adequate room around them to get around them, because I think at this point they're in the middle of the sidewalk, so they need to be moved.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you, Stephen.
It looks like Jana has another question.
Well, sorry, I have a lot of questions on, okay, so again, it's back to my pedestrian question. Is on the edge of the bridge, is it going to be a railing fence like the one in the existing picture, the one that you have displayed right now? Is that how it's going to look?
I think that might be a question for Vince.
Yeah, right now the shown there is for preliminary view of the cross section of the bridge, but in my design I am allowing for weight for a fence type structure similar to the bridge southbound of this over the Rio Leche. I was actually oversight on that one as well, so we have allowed for that and are working with the different entities to decide if we want to implement that or another type of pedestrian structure.
So one of the ideas that people have been kicking around how to improve Cuba's walkability and its Main Street feel is to have a river walk, a bosque kind of walk along the Rio Puerco. Do you see that this bridge that you're going to be building, we could add walks? Or has anybody approached you with that idea?
Casey, can you go to the cross section of the bridge with the profile? That might help answer
This
it.
one?
I don't think I'm the person to answer this question, but I just thought this slide would help demonstrate what the underside of the bridge is generally going to look like. I don't know if Casey or Phil has any information regarding that.
I know I haven't heard about that. I mean, I think that's a great idea. I don't know that we can include that as part of this project. But you know, maybe Phil has something to add. You know, maybe that's something that could be a
Yeah.
future project.
Yeah, we're certainly not changing the existing channel. So we are not negatively impacting the ability to do that in the future, I don't think. Because right now we're maintaining the current grade of the channel.
Sure. And this is not anything that has a budget, or it's just an idea so far. Would there even be space for a pedestrian underpass?
I can answer that one, Casey. This is Chris Baca. There should be sufficient clearance and height, but I think with and the project could accommodate something like that. One of the items that would need to be looked at in further studies, because it was not included to my knowledge in any of the stormwater analysis, is what the water depths would potentially be when the Rio Puerco fills up. There's obviously sufficient room underneath the bridge to carry the flows, but that would be one of the considerations if a project like that is taken, but there are design elements that could be looked at to do it. But from a space standpoint, I think there's room. It would just need to accommodate a bunch of things that this project is not looking at this time.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And at this time, we don't have anyone else with a question, and there's no questions in the Q&A. If you do have a question, just go ahead and raise your hand or type it in the Q&A. And let me go back to the information on the project. And I know sometimes questions don't come on the spot, but they do come later on in the week, and as you're having conversations with your neighbors and friends and family members. So again, if you do have a question later on, Cuba Bridge at parametrix.com, and please just let us know what your questions are, and we will follow up with you. Also, there's the online form as well, which will also have this meeting link as well in there. So if your friends and family and neighbors want to see the presentation, they can view it at the site that's listed there on the dot.nm.gov site. And Freddie, Vince, Philip, Chris, Casey, Stephen, is there anything else you'd like to add that maybe wasn't covered through our conversations this evening?
I can't think of anything. Brent, thank you for asking.
Brent, I can add on and elaborate more on the condition of the bridge here. This is a bridge with a deck rating that national standards considered to be poor, and I can't really speak to the public's, knowledge of the bridge. You can see and I don't even encourage people to go under the bridge. It's quite treacherous to go down there. But the bridge deck itself, so what the driving public sees up top is always, just surface level. If you were to look under the bridge itself, you'd see that the deck itself is quite deteriorated, and This is one of the major reasons that this project was pursued in the first place, is to replace this bridge, much like Casey said earlier on in the presentation. And that justifies the replacement of it.
Thank you, Philip. Appreciate that. And I know that other people appreciate that as well. And this is the kind of the last call for questions. If anyone has anything or just statements or just general excitement about the project, if you'd like to just give a little 20 seconds or so on it, if you have a last parting words for us. All right. Well, thank you to the public for joining in. We appreciate you. And this is your project. So thank you for being a part of it. Please share this with your friends and family and neighbors. We'd love to hear from them as well. And again, it's cubabridge@parametrix.com for an email, or the dot.mn.gov/event/public-meeting-550-Rio Puerco, or via mail at 9600 San Mateo Boulevard Northeast, Albuquerque, New Mexico 87113. Please reach out if you have any questions or comments, or would just have anything to provide to the project. We appreciate those. Thank you to
Brent.
Casey and Chris, Freddie, Vince, Philip, and Stephen. Appreciate your time tonight, and Jennifer as well. Casey, is there anything else you'd like to add?